This is video number 3 on some overlooked aspects in the life of a Christian, and it's called Renewal of the Mind, putting off old habits and putting on new habits. The verse I'd like to look at is found in Ephesians chapter 4 verse 23, where it says that you put off concerning your former conduct the old man, which grows corrupt according to the deceitful lusts, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind. And the New International Version says, be renewed in the attitude of your mind. I'm going to use 3 analogies to hopefully try and illustrate the power that habits can have over us in our patterns of thinking and in our patterns of speech and behavior, and then look at how Christ can set us free. So the first one involves tea towels. We once decided to move the location of the tea towels in our house. And although we knew that we had done this, that we had moved the tea towels to a completely different wall, didn't matter. I still took the tea towel back to the same old spot where there was no longer any hooks upon the wall and tried to hang the towel up there. It was just automatic. It was ingrained into me like a groove that had been deeply worn as a habit in my life. And it sort of struck me that we can be like this even as Christians. God has changed us, but because of an ingrained habit, we still can revert to old patterns of doing things when really we can be renewed. To help illustrate this further, I'd like to refer you to an old movie that I used to love when I was a kid called Conan the Barbarian, about a big muscle-bound warrior. But in his earlier life, Conan was tied up to a wheel called the Wheel of Pain. It was a sort of a thing that he had to push around from a boy all the way growing up until he became a man. And this wheel was like a pump. I think it was providing water or something for the people who had enslaved him. But as Conan pushed this wheel around over the many years, a groove was formed under his feet, and you can see that pointed to by the red arrow there. And this is a bit like habits. You see, once we are doing a habit over a long time, whether it's a habit of thinking, pattern of negative thinking, or certain patterns of speech, or even behaviors, they can become like grooves in our minds and imaginations, and they can be worn deep by long self-indulgence. To reinforce this further, I'd like you to think of another analogy, and this is the last one. I want you to imagine a rather strange situation where an owner of a parrot or a bird has decided to tie it up to a pole, and it walks around in circles endlessly, pecking birdseed or whatever from the ground. And along comes a friend one day and feels sorry for this bird and decides he would like to pay the owner in order to release it. But before he decides to take the bird home, imagine the dismay of the friend who, upon releasing the bird, notices that the bird does not fly off, it does not walk off anywhere else, but continues to walk in circles as if it is still bound by an invisible bond. Now, we may laugh at the thought of this, but it illustrates precisely the problem that Paul is addressing in the verses in Ephesians. Paul has told us to put off our former conduct, the old man that grows corrupt according to deceitful lusts, and to be renewed in the spirit of the mind. You see, Christ has set us free by his blood. He has liberated us through a powerful baptism with the Holy Spirit. Now we must break the power of old habits in our minds and our wills, and the grooves in our minds and imaginations that have been worn deep by long self-indulgence can be broken now that we are Christ's, and we need to break with the habits of a lifetime. Human beings, of course, love habits, but we do have the Holy Spirit within us to help us to break them and enable us to put on or create new ones. So we're encouraged to catch ourselves when we start to think in certain ways or speak in certain ways or be tempted to behave in certain ways that do not honour the Lord. And we can resolve to crumple them up, these habits, or screw them up like old newspapers and throw them away. And we will be surprised at the resources that are in us and are at our disposal to form the character of Christ within. Christ has set us free from the dominating and domineering tyranny of sin that once sat upon our heads and ruled over our lives. And of course, we are not made perfect in this life. That's not until we get to glory. But the Lord is expecting progress. Maybe not absolute perfection here, but progress. And we can learn to walk away from old ingrained habits. The Lord is looking for progress, and here I am guilty of throwing in a fourth analogy. When the Allied forces landed at Normandy on D-Day, there was progress after a while. They did take one town after another town as they progressed across Europe, and that's really what the Lord wants. He wants us to progress in the Christian life and not always stay circling around one particular place. So the Lord bless you, and may He help all of us to learn to walk away from old habits and to learn gradually and progressively to put on new ones.